Mic check, mic check. Can you guys hear me now? You guys should be good. What up, what up, what up? Can you guys hear me? And can you guys see my screen? Just read his lips. New technique. Yeah. What's up, everyone? Should be good here now. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Good morning, everyone. Not sure what happened there, but yeah, hope you guys are doing well. Today is Thursday, June the 25th. As I just talked about, MU earnings, that was the main catalyst that we had in the overnight session. Really nice push, right? Solid earnings as well. This one is back at, of course, our all-time highs. And then this one is dragging up the rest of the market, right? Q, SPY, of course, SMH here as well. So a lot of semiconductors moving up nicely based off that strong guidance on the MU earnings. We have a bunch of other things to kind of talk about coming into today here as well. So with that being said, let's pull up the economic calendar and we'll get started. Okay. So first things first, let's talk about some of the red folder news events that we have, at least for today. As I mentioned, the main thing, of course, is the MU earnings. We still have some red folder news that's going to be at 8:30. Core PCE price index, along with the final GDP numbers, and also the unemployment claims here as well. And of course, tomorrow we do have the revised consumer sentiment, which is going to be at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So with that being said, let's go on to the charts. First thing that we want to talk about, as I mentioned, is the MU earnings. This one is above our all-time highs level now. So really solid guidance, strong earnings beat as well, and we're above our all-time highs. So that's why that is really the sole reason why the markets are back at highs here. So let's go on to the higher time frames here, starting off with the QQQ. So as you can see, the overall indices themselves, right? If we're looking at the SPY and Qs, they're more so in a range, right? If we're looking at the past 20 to 40 sessions here on the daily chart, the one that is, of course, still strong is the semiconductors in itself. We can clearly see that this one's more so in a trend compared to the SPY at least, and then the Qs is lagging just a little bit behind. If you look at DRAM, which is the memory ETF, and see DRAM, we kind of talked about this potential retest being used nicely, right? 68. And of course, in the overnight session, we end up having some nice buyers that basically stepped in right off this level and right back up in towards that all-time highs, of course. So the memory ETF is the one that's leading the markets higher, SMH following behind, and then we have the Qs, and then we have the SPY, of course, which is not even above our Tuesday's highs or our previous day highs compared to Qs above it. And then, of course, if you look at the SMH or even the memory ETF, we're well above our key levels that we have marked out. So with that being said, we kind of understand that these semis are leading the markets higher. Let's go on to the game plan for today, starting off with the SPY. So the game plan today is fairly clear on the SPY chart. You can see this is a very key technical level, 740. Touch here, touch here. If we do want to see some upside above our previous day highs, we need to see a hold of our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside. Another possible scenario is if we consolidate, break above, we need to see the hold back above that 740 for a push towards the upside here as well. Is there a possibility where we could see another pop and fade on the SPY in itself? Yes, this is a possibility back down in towards now. What do we have? We have a pretty big gap. But if we were to assume that this is the low of the week, right, we actually have two gaps on the charts. So we have the gap that we created here on Monday, and we can kind of mark this out. And then we also have the gap for today here as well. So there's two gaps on the charts if you want to consider this another gap, right? So there's technically three, right? I just say 1 and 2. So coming to market open, right, there's a possibility, right, with the Qs, right, MU earnings, really solid reaction. If we want to continue higher and we break back above that 740, we can be looking for at least the SPY to hold above that 740 in this previous day highs for a potential move back up in towards this gap fill that we have, right? So this is scenario number one. There's another possible scenario where if the markets, let's say for the Qs or the SMH wants to reject off our all-time highs, or let's say if MU wants to have a little bit of rejection off that all-time highs after earnings, there's a potential where we can see some sort of pop and fade, and then the SPY could see a retracement back down in towards that previous day close to fill this gap back towards the downside. So at least for today on the SPY, I have a lot more of a neutral stance, and that's mainly because of the higher time frames, right? I'm not leaning overly bullish nor bearish on the SPY. If I zoom out on the hourly time frame, I'd say we're fairly neutral here. For the QQQ, let's go into the 15-minute time frame. Key levels that I have marked out today is of course going to be our high that we created here on Wednesday, and then high created here on Tuesday, and then we also have our previous day highs here as well. If you want to see some continuation above our 722 for a push towards the upside, or if price comes all the way back down in towards that previous day highs, we could also be looking for a potential previous day highs bounce here as well. As for any sort of potential rejection, if we get underneath that 724, be a little bit more cautious. We could see a reversal back down in towards that previous day highs at a minimum, 720. Let's look at the SMH here. Let's talk about this one more so from a higher time frame perspective. So right here, what we have on the daily time frame is higher lows being built. You can see higher lows are being built here on the SMH. We came down into the daily 20, and now you can see we're having a little bit of a bounce, and we're back or right at our previous all-time highs level, which is the original level where we had this breakout and we had a nice continuation, right? This was to start off the week, right? We had a nice breakout. So now for the SMH, what we would like to see is the reaction that we have off our 640. So if we go back onto the hourly time frame, and if I were to just draw out this area, right, this is our previous all-time highs. This is kind of the area, as I mentioned, where once we broke above, we saw a nice continuation. If we do want to see a push higher, really we like to see it maintain this structure, right? This is basically our kind of head and shoulders, if you were to look at this more so, right? We kind of have our head, we have our left shoulder, we have our right shoulder. If price wants to reject, we could see a reversal back towards the downside, or if now we can maintain above that 640, we can essentially invalidate this right shoulder, and that would be a bullish sign for, of course, a move back up in towards that 660, along with that all-time highs, which would be our 670. So if you go into lower time frames here, turn back on the drawings, this is the exact level I have marked out, 640. So at least for today, right, previously highs a little bit further away, but now we're going to have that 640 along with our Tuesday's highs. For longs, we like to see it maintain above 640 for a push higher, or now above our pre-market highs for a push towards the upside here as well. If we somehow break underneath, show a lot more weaker price action, then be cautious of this potential flip for a move back down in towards our 624 and potentially below here, right? That would happen underneath that 640 on the SMH. That being said, let's head on to the IWM. This one's still holding up nicely. Ended up having a nice pop up in towards that all-time highs. Not quite not quite close above our all-time highs, but IWM in this case looks fairly bullish. If you take a look at DRAM, in this case, this is the memory ETF. As I mentioned, we're already back at our all-time highs key levels. What we can have marked out in this case is our previous all-time highs. So as you can see, we end up having a nice push up Monday, Tuesday. We end up having a nice gap up on Monday. Really pretty big gap down in the overall markets. And now you see we're honestly gapping back up. So we're gapping back up in towards that all-time highs. If you want to see continuation, like to see a hold of this 76 and 90 level, are now above our all-time highs for a potential move back towards the upside. So that's what we have on the memory ETF, which of course, as I mentioned, is leading the markets back towards the upside. Now, with that being said, let's head on to the futures. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers you'd like me to go over here now, you guys can drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below as well. All right, with the NQ, key levels that we have marked out is of course just going to be our our Tuesday's highs. If we want to see some upside, maintain above this level for a continue push towards the upside. I flip back underneath, we can see a mean reversion back down in towards our previous day highs and potentially below. ES key levels is going to be a little bit more clear, right? Previous day highs along with our high that we created here on Tuesday. And then we also have our previous day lows and we have multiple touches here as well. So if we do want to see upside, break above, retest continuation. If we want to reject, there's possibility we could see a flush back towards the lows. All right, with that being said, I'm going to hop on to some names here now as well. I guess I had a Traders Academy presentation, so I kind of got rid of some of the levels that I do have. But we'll start off on Tesla here. As I mentioned, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers now, you guys can drop them in the chat. What's up, everyone? Good morning. Do you trade live in your premium Discord server? Want to learn? I do every single day. That one's in the description. I just kind of go over exactly my thought process. This one right here is just the pre-market preps, and then I do the live trading as well. We do also have some red folder news that is going to be at 8:30, so that's in roughly about 10 minutes. All right, starting off on Tesla, we kind of talked about one of the key levels being our 380 here on the higher time frames. You can see we're also trying to break back underneath 380 on the daily chart. Candle close underneath here as well. So for Tesla, what are the key levels that I have marked out? What I'm just going to mark out now is just going to be that previous day lows. So that previous day lows, our Tuesday's lows, and then we also have the break, retest, continuation towards the downside. So for Tesla, moving forward, the key level is just going to be 380. You can see multiple touches here. And now we're also rejecting here as well in the pre-market. If we want to continue lower, another rejection for a push back down in towards that previous day lows. Tesla for me is a little bit weaker. Maybe if we can reclaim back above the 380, we can see a push back up in towards that previous day highs, but we have to reclaim with a lot of strength, right? Back above that 380. Let's go on to Nvidia. Nvidia is another one that I was interested in for some more downside yesterday, just based off of the higher time frames. The key levels I marked out, of course, is our 200. Very key technical level, more so on the lower time frames. If we're talking about this more so on the daily chart, we're coming back into that previous really area that we bounced from earlier in May. So you can see we're coming all the way back down. This is actually a good buying opportunity if you're interested in more so like a swing or longer term, right off this 196 200-ish area. So buyers are stepping in nicely here on Nvidia, more so on the higher time frames. Of course, now this one was going to close weak, but we had MU earnings and ended up having a nice push kind of coming into close. So the key levels that we have for Nvidia coming into market open here today is going to be our 200 key psych. If you want to see some continuation higher, above our 200 or above our previous day highs for a push higher. If we get back underneath, we can be looking for a potential flip back down in towards our previous day lows. That being said, let's hop onto some names that are showing some strength here, more so on the higher time frame. Starting off with AMD. This one, of course, is just continue to hold key levels. Higher lows are being built. Now we are back at our all-time highs key levels. So for AMD, we do also have this a very small gap that we have marked out on the charts. What I like to see coming into today here for AMD is the reaction that we have off our previous all-time highs. That's one of the main levels that we have marked out. So for AMD, we have our 550. If we do want to get above our 550, continuation up in towards that 560, a pop and rejection, a push right back down in towards that 530. So let's go on to the lower time frames. It's pretty clear here today. We have our previous day highs marked out, and we also have that 530. Longs above 540, really 543 for a continuation towards the upside. If we reject, we could see a potential pushback down in towards our previous day highs, 530 on the higher time frames, right? Very key, as I mentioned, more so based off the hourly, right? Just kind of, you can just kind of mark out this range. If price can break above, we can see a potential move back up in towards our all-time highs. If we reject, we can see a pushback down in towards that 530. Apple, not really too much to talk about here. Google, some of the Meg 7 names kind of dropped yesterday. So we had a little bit of strength on some of the Meg 7 names in the past kind of two sessions, but ultimately that didn't last too long, right? More so based off the higher time frames. Daily chart on Google showing a little bit more weakness underneath the EMAs, crossing underneath the 9 and 21 here as well. Same thing with Apple, Microsoft, right? A little bit of strength only to be faded towards the downside. Really, next level is all the way back down towards 360 here on Microsoft. So all these Meg 7 names are just continue to show weakness. We're gonna not try and buy the dip. The dip buys on the Meg 7 names have been fairly difficult. Amazon, similar thesis here. You had a nice pop, but ultimately the daily candle closed weak, and there is some more room towards the downside, right? Netflix underneath our previous pivot point from earlier into the year. And then for SpaceX, we are seeing some nice buyers stepping in here on SpaceX, but we're kind of rejecting now right off their 164. So the Meg 7 names, there's really not too much to talk about on these ones. They're just continuing to push towards the downside. We are about to approach our higher time frame levels of support. So for something like a Microsoft, right, you can clearly see it's been bearish. But what we have is the key level is really 350, right? For something like Meta, right? It's about to approach another higher time frame, right? Weekly support. Amazon, similar thesis. Netflix, very similar thesis. They're all coming down into weekly higher time frame levels of support, which is all the way down in towards our right previous all-time highs levels. So with that being said, let's talk about SpaceX here as well, very briefly, and then we'll go on to some other names. As for SpaceX, nice buyer stepped in off that IPO, basically opening price yesterday, inside bar day. Today broke above in the pre-market, and now we're kind of rejecting off this 164 once again, right back inside the middle of the range. So for SpaceX, not really too much to talk about as well. But the main things are, of course, semis, more so in specific memory names, which we'll touch up on here. Now, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, we'll go over some for the next couple of minutes. And then, of course, we'll talk about the core PC price index and then final GDP numbers and everything else as well. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below. What's up, Mr. Incredible? Thanks for the 10. Good morning. Tesla is approaching the weekly 20 EMA. Do you think it'll go that low? Thank you. I meant the monthly 2365. So for Tesla, right, it's going to be hard to try and time a bottom. Right, realistically looking at this one, 380, a very key technical level. If you assume that the low is already put in for the year, right, this you would like to see build a higher low, higher time frame, more so this like kind of inverse head and shoulders. This 380 level you like to see hold for a pushback towards the highs. If you look at this more so on the higher time frames, let's look at Tesla. I'm still long-term bullish, but Tesla more so, as you can see right here, building up higher lows on the monthly. If you look at this on the weekly time frame as well, I'd say we're still building up higher lows on the weekly time frame as well, but you could also argue the fact that Tesla put in a double top and now we're just slowing down, kind of putting in a lower high here as well. So Tesla is in a very key technical area. That's why that 380 that I mentioned, you can just draw this general area on the higher time frames. There's going to be a touch here, turn into support, kind of overshot it, reclaim, and now this level once again, you like to see hold for a push higher. Right, Tesla, if it does break underneath this 380, starts to slow down, we are just going to indeed consolidate a lot more. If we can hold this 380, that would be nice for some structure for a potential move. Not saying it's going to flip back all of a sudden and have insane buyers and push back up and towards 440. No, right? It's just gonna more so kind of consolidate here, and that's just based off of the trend. And then if you're onto the daily time frame, it's really not doing too much, right? We're just in more so consolidation here on Tesla on the higher time frames. So it's very hard to determine, oh, within the next, right, a shorter term period where we're going to have like a V shape and we're just going to move back towards the upside, right? That would probably be not that realistic. And then if you're looking at this for a downside perspective, if we break underneath this 380, right, we can see some more room lower, right? The next level now on Tesla is going to be down in towards 370 and potentially this 350 level if now we want to have a weak candle closure more so on the weekly time frame. All right, that being said, let's go on to MU. So MU, higher time frames, broke above our all-time highs. Now we are currently at our all-time highs here in the after hours, 1240. Coming into today, we'll keep an eye on MU previous all-time highs or all-time highs bounce for a push towards the upside. Let's keep an eye on this play. All right, opening play, dip down in towards our 1200. We could be looking for an earnings kind of dip and rip or an IV flush for a pushback towards the highs. Let's keep an eye on this 1200. You can potentially look for buyers to step in off this level, risk underneath, looking for a move back towards the highs. So MU is the main one, of course, up about 17% here in the pre-market. As for SNDK, a lot of the memory names are going to bounce nicely. SNDK, really solid bounce right off that 1800. This is a higher time frame break and retest, of course, with earnings now. This one's flipping nicely. So hourly chart, pretty solid bounce right off that previous break, previous retest level. So you can see break, retest, came all the way back down, retested, buyers stepped in, and now you can see we're pushing back towards the upside. For SMDK, let's keep an eye out on our 2160, maintain above our 2160, push up in towards our all-time highs here. INTC, key levels that we have marked out is, let's go back onto the higher time frames, which is that 130. Nice hold above our previous all-time highs here. You can see nice break, retest more so on the daily, and now we're going to be looking for a continuation higher. INTC, nice daily higher lows are being built. Now we just like to see break above our all-time highs, continuation towards the upside. INTC has been one of my favorite names ever since we bounced off that 100 key psych levels. We can just have marked out are now going to be our previous day highs and our previous all-time highs. So for for INTC, now we like to see break above our all-time highs for continuation, or now the potential bounce play off our 136, which is our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside here. All right, let's take a look at some of the numbers that we have released for the core PCE. As you can see here, the numbers just came out actual 0.3%, forecasted 0.3 as well. Basically came in line with expectations. Final GDP numbers, though, as you can see, a little bit higher than expectations. 1.6%. We had 2.1%. The price index came in essentially in line with expectations. And then for the unemployment claims, came in a little bit lower as well, which is good. So for the overall markets, now for the spine cues, a nice little reaction right off those numbers that we had for the final GDP and of course the core PC price index. So nice little pop here on the spine cues. Right into that previous day highs here. So really nothing has kind of changed. The game plan is still the exact same coming to market open. And the SMH, we're getting a little bit of a nice pop here now as well. So with that being said, let's go into a couple more other tickers. WDC, another memory name. This one came very close to that previous all-time highs, or sorry, that previous retest level right off that 600. So WDC, a name that was very strong, came all the way back into that 600. Nice buyer stepped in, and now you can see we're having kind of this nice reversal off that 600. MBIS, MRVL, some of these ones are kind of lagging behind just a little bit. The main ones are the memory names, right? So of course with MU pushing up nicely, you can also take a look at STX. This one, pretty solid retest right off that previous all-time highs level 950. And now you can see we're back at our all-time highs here. So Coming into today with the memory names leading the markets higher, right? MU already at all-time highs, SNDK, couple names that have room back up in towards the all-time highs. What are we going to be focusing in on today, right? The names, of course, we're going to be focusing on are all the semiconductors, right? All the names that are within the semis, specifically memory names. You can see the Qs and SPY, not as bullish as the semis. So if we do want to long anything, we want to long with the most relative strength. So at least for today, game plan. A couple of things we're going to keep an eye out for. AMD right above our 540 for a potential move back towards the upside. We'll keep an eye out on that. As for a few other tickers that we can keep an eye out on, MU above our previous all-time highs bounce for continuation. SNDK, this one above our 1250 for a push towards the upside. INTC, another one above our all-time highs, or now a pullback down in towards our previous day highs for a pushback towards the upside. WDC looks good here as well. You would like to see it above our 740, or now you like to see it above our 690 for continuation. Other tickers, MRVL, this one's lagging behind, not showing as much strength here in the after hours, but above our 290. TSM looks good here, flipping back above key levels. Keep an eye out on that 450 for a potential move back towards the upside. So a lot of these names now, right? We just had a nice pullback. MU earnings was key. We have strong guidance. A lot of these names are pushing back towards the upside. So we're just going to continue to look for continuation back up in towards our all-time highs and above, right? We still have some room, especially on the SMH back up in towards our 660, which is a little bit further away, but maintain above that 640. Let's look for a push up in towards that 650 and potentially that gap fill that we created here that was on Tuesday. But yeah, at least for today, that's the game plan. We're going to focus in on some of the semis that we have marked out, all the names that are now bouncing that have more strength compared to names that are, let's say, for example, like a Meta or a Microsoft, Google, Apple. All these names are weak, right? It's going to be very hard to long these names. We would actually much rather be hands off or maybe even try and short these tickers just because they've been showing relative weakness. So we're definitely not going to long these names. We want to long names with strength, like an MU, the names that are leading the markets back towards the upside. If the markets, let's say, want to reject coming into today, then maybe we can actually look for a couple of these ones to short towards the downside. If we have a lot of relative weakness and we kind of reject off key levels coming into market open. Yeah, with that being said, that's going to be it for me today. I'm going to call it a session here and get ready for market open. If you guys did enjoy that, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. A couple of you guys are talking about, let me go over a couple more names here. Oracle, this one. Nice pop, but similar thesis. It kind of looks the same as Microsoft and all these other ones. Software names, we kind of had a nice break, but ultimately now you can see kind of rejecting most likely Oracle. We're just going to come back down into 140. Don't try and look for, you could look for a higher low here, but pretty weak, a pretty strong sell-off, kind of similar with Microsoft. We're probably just going to end up gravitating down and towards the low. So similar thing that Oracle looks like it's doing, similar sector as well, probably down into 150, 140. AVGO, this one, you like to see the flip back above that 400. Yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Hope you guys did enjoy that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, SpaceX, I already went over that one. You can scroll back in the stream on SpaceX and you can rewatch that. Went over most of the other tickers as well. But yeah, if you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that one is in the description. And with that being said, hope you guys have a great rest of the day. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.